this video, I'm going to be showing you the 3 types of automations that you need within your agency to set up a really scale-proof system when it comes to your operations. I'm going to be going over these 3 different types of automations with examples for each section to give you an idea of what these automation types actually look like in action. If you don't know who I am, my name's Leo. I'm the CEO and founder of Fluxomate, an operation agency that helps agency owners all over the world set up scale-proof systems. Automation is a massive part of what we do here at Fluxomate in order to set up these skill-proof systems. So whether you already have some automations within your agency, you're looking to expand your current setup, or you're brand new to automation and you're looking to get an idea of different automations you can actually build in your agency, this video is going to be extremely valuable. Automating parts of your agency is one of the best things you can actually do for you, your clients, and your employees to improve everyone's experience. So hopefully this video will give you a better idea of the different automations you should be building out within your agency. I don't want to waste any more of your time, so let's get straight into the 3 different types of automations with examples. So like I said in the introduction, today we're going to be going over 3 different automation types. All of these kind of interlink with each other, and you'll see what I mean, especially when we start moving down the different stages of the different types of automations. Let's get started with simple automations. Now, the name kind of summarizes these up. Now, usually these are as simple as connecting A to B. They are not complicated at all, and usually they're about 2 to 3 steps, 3 steps long version of these ones. In all honesty, I believe about 90% of all agency owners can actually do these. They're not complicated at all, especially with tools like Zapier or Make, where it make your life a lot easier when actually creating these tools. And in this, when I start going over all the examples, you'll get a really good understanding of how simple these actually are. Because 9 times out of 10, you've probably already created some of these within your agency without even knowing. Just to get a really clear understanding. All we're trying to do here is remove those little small annoying manual tasks you have to do on a consistent basis from you and your team, so you can actually focus on the important things rather than those distracting things that take your time away from the work you're actually good at for no reason. Now, one important thing to actually mention is that at the start, when you set, let's say, 1 or 2 automations, you're not going to feel much of a difference when it comes to these small ones. However, over time, when you start building, a really good storage of, let's say, 10 or more of these automations, that's when you start feeling a massive difference in terms of your workload and what you actually need to do, because you're not being distracted by having to do these small things which you might forget and cause delays for no reason. Let's go straight into the examples. I've got a ton of examples to actually show you, and then I'm going to also show you a way that you can get specific examples on the apps that you're actually looking for. So firstly, we'll go over sales examples. This is very simple. Let's say every single time you book a sales call, you can set up automation that automatically adds this lead to your CRM and then creates some sort of task in your task manager system for your sales team to actually prepare for the call. Another example in a meeting sense is whenever you have a new Zoom recording. So let's say you finish a sales call, the recording just saved. You can automatically add that recording to a specific shared Google Drive, so you can share with your different team members and also send a message to your closer or your team leader when it comes to sales to let them know there's a new recording they can actually review. That's probably as complicated as these ones will actually get. Like I said, they are very simple. But let's go through some more examples. Another one is, let's say you just finished a task, your project management system, task management system, whatever you're using. If you mark that as complete, you can set up automation that automatically sends a notification to a specific team member to let them know they can actually review your work. Similar exact thing for reminders. Let's say it's someone's birthday. You can set up automation that whenever that birthday comes around, it sends a reminder to the team members so no one forgets. Similar thing on the alert side of things. Let's say you get a new payment. I know a lot of agencies actually have this. Whenever a new payment comes in through Stripe, you can send a message to a specific Slack channel or even update their accounts like I've got here to make sure everything's automatically up to date. And the last example I've got here is a reporting example. You can set up a simple automation that every 30 days it schedules itself, checks a spreadsheet where all your KPIs are, and then share those key KPIs for the month with the relevant team members. So, you can get an idea. None of these things are really complicated and they're quite easy to set up because all you're doing is connecting one app to another. Let's say complicated scenarios in this example, anyways, 3 apps maximum. Now, if you want more examples of what these actually look like, I'd recommend going to something like Zapier. So if we go over here to Zapier.com example and we choose any one of these apps, so say Slack, for example, you can obviously search whatever app you want to use. And if we scroll down, you can see they give you a bunch of examples of these simple automations that you can easily connect one app like Slack in this example to another. These are nothing complicated. Like I said, 90% of agency owners can set up some sort of basic automations in their agency. But guys, just because they're not complicated doesn't mean it's something that you don't need in your agency. But once you got 10, 20, 30 of these running simultaneously, it will lead to massive efficiency improvements within your agency because it prevents you from being distracted, having to do these small, annoying little tasks, and avoiding any delays in any of those tasks as well. So regardless of how simple these specific automations are, they're still very, very important factor. That brings me on to the second stage or the second type of automation, which is complex automations. Now, these are a bit more complicated. Usually here, talking about the 10 plus steps, obviously, depending on what you're specifically doing. You're going to have to use different internal tools like webhooks, scheduling tools, and sometimes you might even have to use some custom coding. But in all honesty, this is where starts getting a bit more interesting than the basic automations because this is where you'll see actual parts of your workflow being automated. So, for example, parts of your fulfillment, creating contracts, creating payment links, you're able to see these things actually being automated by different tools like Zapier or Make, or at the very least, systemized in a way that you have a clear process on how you're actually doing these things with the aid of automation. Now, in most cases, we're not automating an entire process like onboarding fulfillment or say feedback collection here, but because these processes are made up of their own individual workflows that work on specific conditions. But what we are doing here is actually automating specific workflows within that process. And you can obviously combine these different automations, which I'm going to be talking about in a second. So, like I said here, complex automations are a bit more complicated. I think the name says it for itself. Usually here we've got 4 different software at minimum. We have a lot of different paths that are actually going on. So for example, if the automation meets certain conditions, it'll go down this path. If it doesn't, it'll go down another path. We're using a lot of different internal tools like filters, formatters, scheduling tools, webhooks, parsers, and we're even using coding sometimes. But don't be scared of that, honestly. You can generate all your code using ChatGPT, at least for basic things like automation code. It's not complicated at all, guys, I guarantee it. Unlike basic automations, even have one or two of these within your agency will make a big difference. Because remember, here you're automating entire workflows. So you'll see, taking a couple hours to build one or two of these will lead to massive improvements in time savings, also efficiency within your agency. Let's go through some examples. Now, in this video, I'm not going to be showing you any live builds or anything like that. But all the examples I'm about to show you right now are examples from previous YouTube videos that you can check out on my channel. Usually we build all of these live. So if you want a much more detailed breakdown on how to actually build these specific automations, you can check out the rest of the videos on my channel. So let's get straight into it. First, we have a sales research example. Now, the specific use case for this automation was to research leads before the sales call actually took place. So what it does is very, very simple. Whenever a call is booked, it uses Perplexity AI, which is basically just an AI model that has access to up-to-date data to actually research the lead's website. We then go ahead and actually update the CRM with that kind of summarized 1 to 2 sentences, and then send a Slack message to the closer that's actually assigned to this specific call with that information from the company. As you can see, guys, here we're combining a lot of different steps together, and we're using about 4 different apps. So this is an example of a complex automation. Another example we have is the customer support. Now this is automation we built in a video, and all we did here is whenever a customer or let's say a client submits a ticket using Google Forms, we combine all that information to create a task within our task management system. We then send a message to the specific team member assigned to that specific customer to let them know that they have a task they need to complete, and then we send an email to that client to let them know that someone's actually working on a specific task. Once again, as you can see here, we're just combining different softwares together in a very, very seamless way to automate the workflow. If someone was to do this manually, it will lead to delays for no reason. And it will take some time to go through the ticket, create the tasks, send a message, and then send an email. Time which in my opinion is wasted because that employee could be doing something better and actually applying their skills. Another example we have here is lead magnets. Now, this was from a video when it came to school automation. So whenever someone completes a form, it goes ahead and actually creates an AI-powered lead magnet. Now, in all honesty, this is about 3 different steps in itself. So in reality, this was probably like 10 plus steps, but still, you get the idea. So we take all the information from the form to create them some sort of AI-powered lead magnet to provide value to them. Then we go ahead and send them an email or SMS with a link to that lead magnet. We give them a free access to a course within that community, remove them from any email sequences to prevent them from getting spammed. And then if they're qualified, we send a notification to the closer. Like I said, each one of these steps probably have 2 or 3 steps within themselves to actually make all their work properly. But this is a great example of a complex automation which combines a lot of different things such as AI, lead magnets, school communities, and sales and different filters all in one automation. Very, very cool. 2 more examples. This one is an end of day reporting automation. Now, this is automation in a much more complex system, but it basically runs at the end of each day, and it reads the data from a Google Sheet that's been updated throughout the day with those end of day reports from different employees, and condenses it using ChatGPT into a summarized data, and then sends a Slack message to that specific channel and the relevant team leaders for the departments. Again, as you can see here, we're using a lot of different apps, connecting them. And if it's something that runs every single day, it wouldn't make sense to have someone doing this because it would just lead to delays and a waste of time for no reason. And the last example I've got for our complex automation is a Slack onboarding example. Now, this automation and the use case was to automatically basically onboard new clients to your Slack if you're using it for client communication. So the trigger for this is just a client being closed. And then as soon as that happens, instantly, we go ahead and actually create a Slack channel with the client's name. We go ahead and set a channel topic. We invite any relevant team members like customer success agents or developers, depending on obviously what you do. We then go ahead and send a welcome message to the client and then create a task to actually invite a user to the channel. And once again, this is not something you'd have to automate, but if you had someone doing this every single time you onboard a client, firstly, it leads to delays. This happens instantly. So the client has access to that Slack channel as soon as possible. But secondly, it's just a waste of time, you know. There's no employee doing this when you can just have an automation set up that runs 24/7, doesn't make any mistakes, and does the exact same thing someone would do instantly. All right, guys. So far we've gone over basic automations and complex automations. As you can see, you know, complex automations are basically a combination of basic automations in one. And like I said at the start, all of these kind of interlink within each other. The next thing I want to go over is custom systems. Now, custom systems are just basically sets of complex automations that are working together to achieve one specific output. This is where you get to see entire processes like onboarding, fulfillment, let's say content creation or feedback collection completely automated. In general, these are probably the most complicated automations that you're going to see, but obviously they do come in different shapes and sizes. So depending on what you're doing, this can be really simple, but it could also be really complicated. It just depends on the specific use case and what you're actually doing. Me and my team love building these out. They're a lot of fun just because they require a lot of problem solving. There's always a lot of moving pieces when it comes to these automations, and you have to make sure everything's working together to achieve that desired outcome at the end. Now, I don't mean this to kind of scare you off. Like I said, these do come in different shapes and sizes. So if you're a beginner, you can definitely set up a very, very simple complex automation, which automates a simple process, let's say like part of your content creation. Or they do get quite complicated when you're automating entire systems like fulfillment within an agency, for example. One thing I would recommend if you're actually looking to build out proper custom systems for different use like fulfillment, I always recommend to have some sort of platform where you can actually host these custom automations. But this can be anything from a CRM, a project management tool, an internal platform, which I always recommend, or even a Google Sheet. Just somewhere where you can basically track the automation as it goes through different stages. Like I said, when it comes to custom systems, you're using a combination of different complex automations together in one. And that means you'll have a lot of different triggers set up, and it usually doesn't happen within one specific time frame. It's usually over a much longer period of time. So, for example, if you're using a custom system for something like fulfillment, you'd have one automation that sets off, but then you need to have some sort of second trigger for the second or the third or even a fourth automation. This is where custom systems or some sort of platform actually come in handy to actually build it out and just maintain the automation to make sure it's going through all those relevant steps. So I'll give you some examples of what these actually look like. Like I said, I do have a ton more examples on my YouTube if you want to see a much, much more detailed version of these. But firstly, let's go over a meeting system example. Use case for this automation or custom system, I should say, is very, very simple. It basically just allows different meetings to be categorized in their own sections, be tracked, and have different follow-up actions. So, for example, whenever a meeting gets scheduled, it goes down its respective path depending on what type of sales call it is. So, if it's a sales call, it will add the lead to a newsletter. It will update a spreadsheet row, track that sales information. It then researches the lead, sends a Slack message to the closer, creates a database item within a meeting database so we can actually track the meeting, and also creates a lead in a CRM so they can be tracked. It then sends an email to the client to warm them up, and then sends a secondary email 12 hours before the call, once again, just to warm them up to the offering and the business. That's one path. We can also have a different path, which automatically unqualifies the lead if they don't meet certain criteria based on the questions they actually ask. In all honesty, this is an example of a custom system which isn't too complicated because as you can see, it's just one automation split in different paths. But when it comes to something like onboarding, this is where it gets a bit more fun. So as you can see, it's split in different phases. So this is really where it become really, really handy to track everything at the same time. We've done a whole 15-minute video breaking this entire process. But the key thing I want to show you here is that each thing happens in its own individual phases that are based on other things. So for example, let's say you have your first set of automation happening within phase one, where the trigger is a client being closed. Then it goes ahead and it says notification, orders the gift, does all the Slack account stuff, creates a Google Drive, creates a Google folder, and then a client portal. That's the first set of the automation done. Then we move on to the second phase where the trigger is the client completing a Google form. As you can see, these are just complex automations that live within the same ecosystem, trying to achieve the same goal of actually onboarding a client in this example. If you didn't have a custom system to track all of this, so in this example, I'd recommend a project management tool so you can have a clear overview of where the client is and see if there's any delays or any issues. Then it just gets very, very messy because you don't have a clear idea of where the client is, especially at scale when you're onboarding, let's say, 50 people a month. The last example I'll go through is a sales system. Now, once again, each one of these kind of branches you see here is its own individual complex automation. I have done another video going over this specifically. The main goal I want to show you here is how these custom systems are just combinations of complex automations working together to achieve a specific goal depending on the specific phases. If you do want to check this out, I've linked this video in the top right hand corner. It's one of my favorite videos I've actually done because it breaks down what I would call the ideal sales process, not in terms of a script or different warm-up sequence, but in terms of the automations and operation side of things and the different things you need to do between the different phases, such as before the call, after the call, before the close, after the close. And guys, that's pretty much it. You now have an understanding of the three different types of automations that you can actually use within your agency to optimize your operations and hopefully take some workload off you or your employees. Like I said, all of these three types of automations kind of interlink within each other, and they're all essential to have within your agency to automate different things. The main reason I wanted to make this video is because automation is a massive part of what we do over here at Fluxomate. And for us anyways, it helps having a clear breakdown of what automation we're doing in terms of different type of automation it is, because it kind of sets a standard of how complicated it has to be. So for basic automations, we try to keep them as simple as possible. Complex automations obviously do get a bit more complicated. And then if it's a custom system, then we know we're going to have to put some real work in to really make it work, especially when you're dealing with something complicated like fulfillment. There's a lot of moving pieces that you need to make sure are working properly. And the only way you can do that is by having a really, really good team, really, really good systems to test the different automations and a bit of problem solving skills to figure out the different problems that you're inevitably going to encounter when you're building these sorts of automations out. That's it from me, guys. It's been a pleasure actually recording this video. Make sure to like and subscribe. We actually just hit 900 subscribers, so thank you for everyone's support. If you want to see more videos like this on your feed, make sure to interact with them, and more videos come up with different automation examples, live builds, how to build different internal tools, everything like that. And if this was useful and you kind of want to get an insight on how you can actually use different automations within your agency, below in the description or the comments, I'm going to add in a link to a form you can actually fill out. Once you fill it out, you get access to this 20+ page document breaking down exactly how to basically set up a skill-proof agency. But also within this document, you're going to get 5 completely custom automations based on your specific pain points. These will give you an idea of some automations you can actually set up within your agency. They also provide step-by-step guides on how you can actually set up each individual automation. It's an extremely valuable tool, and there's a couple free resources you get in that document as well, which are really, really helpful if you're looking to set up a skill-proof agency. Obviously, throughout this video, I've talked about some automations we've built in previous videos. So I'm going to attach a playlist in the top right hand corner that you can check out in your own time. I'm going to go through different automation examples. You can get an idea of how to actually build these different things out. So if any of that sounds interesting, you can check out any of the videos on my channel to give you an example of how to actually build these different automation systems for your agency. And apart from that, guys, that's it from me. It's been a pleasure actually recording this video. If you have any sort of questions whatsoever about any of these different types of automations, or if you feel like I rushed through anything, please do leave a comment. We're still a very, very small channel. So if you have any questions, we're 100% going to see it and give you an in-depth response. So don't be shy. Drop a comment below with any questions and we'll get back to you within 24 hours. Thank you so much for watching. There's new videos coming this week, so make sure to keep an eye out on that. And that's it. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.